Hello, everyone. My name is Abi Kadam, and today I'll be presenting my practicum experience for IO psychology. So, throughout my practicum, I completed over 150 hours across several professional roles that allowed me to apply industrial organizational psychology concepts in real organizational settings. So, relevant organizations. My practicum experience consists of mostly two organizations. Valdosta State, where I served in both the chemistry department and the HR and EOD department as a graduate assistant, and Brate Enterprises, where I'm currently working as a HR intern, which also was able to get consulting experience due to the startup nature of the company. And so now we're going to go into my practicum experiences. So first we have the teaching assistant and supervising students. So one responsibility I had was involved, actually supervising these undergraduate students during laboratory sessions. And although this was an academic environment, it closely aligned with IO psychology concepts such as the connection was leadership and team effectiveness. I learned how to communicate expectations clearly, answer questions, and help students work effectively while maintaining this safe environment. The second task was managing inventory, and the IO connection for this was work design and organizational efficiency. So I was responsible for managing this laboratory and inventory, and this required organization, attention to detail, and ensuring resources were available when needed. So from an IO perspective, this relates to work design because effective resource management needs careful attention to detail, and it supports productivity. Finally, we have grading papers and putting it into LMS system. So I graded assignments and entered grades into the LMS, which was obviously for us BlazeView. And so performance management was the IO connection here because I had to maintain and make sure and ensure that all labs were graded consistently, accurately, and fairly. So there was a fair, consistent set of standard among students, and no one was treated more biased, or there was no bias, present. I was able to actually implement the standard on an effective manner. So next, here now we get into my HR and EOD departmental graduate assistantship. So the first one is onboarding tasks. Specifically, I'd enroll new faculty members into their required onboarding courses. For example, if it was a full-time staff, I'd have to, register them into new employee orientation and partners for campus excellence. New employee orientation was required. Task for new employees, especially full time. So that was a very important task that I had to make sure that I did as those requests and as those confirmations came in. And I also had to ensure that this progress was tracked accurately through spreadsheets, making sure that they completed the appropriate training. And this really supported employee on onboarding and learning administration, which was the IO connection in this case. The second one was a training database. So the IO connection for this would obviously be training and development. So I helped maintain the training database, ensuring employee learning records remained accurate and current. So if participants attended a certain training, I had to make sure that the attendance was verified from the sheets that came in after, because everyone that registered isn't automatically, qualified or complete with it. You actually have to show up to the training. And of course, when training requests come in, we are responsible for creating that training and putting it in the training portal so that people are actually able to get on there and register for whatever they're looking for. And finally, we have course evaluation reports. So the IO connection for this is program evaluation and data analytics. And so for the course evaluation reports, this would essentially come from after trainings. So after trainings or during trainings, facilitators would normally hand out a course evaluation to all participants, kind of rating how the facilitator did, what can they do for improvement, and other suggestions or questions like that. And so I'd receive these course evaluations. I would enter the training attendance, which would be more of the training database. But the course evaluation, I would be entering the course evaluation data into Qualtrics, and I would then analyze the data and create a report, which I would then send to the facilitator to obviously help facilitate you know, employee engagement, organizational effectiveness, all these different things to make sure that facilitators are continuously improving on their training and making sure they know what participants' feedback was for that specific training that they hosted. And here we got two more tasks for the same graduate assistantship. So, firstly, we got presentations, IO connections, instructional design, and communication. So obviously, developing presentations and actually carrying out these presentations is a very, applicable skill for a very various professional experience, especially IO psychology and consulting, which is my aspirations. I think that presentations are a huge part of that, and I was responsible for multiple presentations already. And I'm preparing for another presentation later this week for a different training that we're giving, and so it's very important, and it helped me learn a lot, especially how to communicate to different audiences. And finally, we got a bi-weekly newsletter. This was another task that I was responsible for creating, and each newsletter kind of highlighted upcoming trainings, employee development opportunities, and university announcements, right? And so this really had the IO connection of organizational communication, being able to help employees stay informed, increasing engagement, making sure that the newsletters were actually visually appealing, had the right information where people were able to, learn different things and support a positive organizational culture that reflected VSU in the best light. So next we have, this is an example of a flyer I created for a training. It was a supervisor roundtable. I believe it's happening this Wednesday actually, but this was something that I created also to put in the newsletter to advertise, or not even advertise, but just to let people know what resources are available for employees, faculty, and staff across the campus. And, just incorporating little details such as the VSU cup in the middle of the two individuals speaking. And these are just small things that I'm responsible for, and then I had to create on my own. And this kind of it could appear to be a graphic design task, right, at first, but it reflects important IO psychology principles as well, because it relates to employee engagement, right? Being able to facilitate that for employees to actually want to attend this, and training promotion, of course. And here we got my practicum experiences for Bright Day Enterprises as an HR intern. So one project that I had involved working with a nonprofit, which is obviously organizational development and consulting as the IO connection. And so I had to work with a nonprofit to identify organizational challenges and actually develop recommendations for improvement. This is something that I'm currently in the earlier stages of doing, so I'm not going to go too much into depth yet, but I will by the end of the semester. Of course, if there is a deliverable that I'm able to procure out of it, that would be also very useful. But essentially, it is an organizational goal setting project. They need help restructuring their organization. There's a lot of overlap between people. Certain employees are doing things that they feel like someone else should be doing, or some people have higher workloads than others. And so there's an entire internal infrastructure issue going on that me and another group of interns are looking to help out with. So reviewing exit survey data. This was employee research and people analytics. This was another project I was put on in my internship, and essentially I was analyzing intern exit survey responses from previous internship cohorts. I reviewed this qualitative feedback, and I kind of identified recurring themes and created a presentation summarizing key strengths and areas for improvement. Lastly, we've got the weekly Zoom with the founder. Since it is a startup environment, I get a lot of exposure to, very established professionals on a regular basis, and being able to actually have a weekly Zoom with the founder of the company that I'm working for at the moment is very useful, because he actually, like, it's a very seamless communication pattern in terms of stakeholder management, and actually being able to receive feedback on my projects, and just stuff for the future is very integral for me in terms of actually moving on from the company and taking away something more than I had when I came into it, for sure. So now I have a couple of major projects to kind of show you. It's first is the updating TAP brochure for VSU. So initially, one of my projects was redesigning VSU's tuition assistance program brochure. Um, keep in mind the brochure, because it used to be a brochure that was kind of sort of outdated for how people kind of operate in this day and age. It's a little bit too long, and so contain outdated formatting, outdated pictures, dense text, and information that could be essentially communicated a lot more effectively. And so I collaborated with multiple stakeholders, including the graphic design team, created a project plan, and helped ensure that the final brochure accurately reflected university policies in the best manner. And kind of combined organizational communication, process improvement, and change management to really uh, portray a final product that was relevant and applicable. Major project two, I had to create a training slide deck where I acted as an EOD consultant for the HR and EOD department prior to my GA. So they asked me to create a slide deck on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a psychological framework for leadership. And I approached this project in a way of designing a training session, right, rather than just simply creating slides. It included interactive scenarios that encourage participant engagement and practical application of the material. And I had to develop a project timeline again to collaborate with the stakeholders to actually get these certain timelines or certain milestones by a certain date. So we were able to collaborate on that and come up with a slide deck that actually was a real training that higher education faculty attended, and it went really well. So my major project number three, I talked about it briefly when I was going over my practicum task for Brete Enterprises, but this is an intern feedback synthesis. So I analyzed qualitative responses from former interns to identify the most common themes regarding what interns valued and where improvements could be made. So I organized the responses into certain categories, and I designed a presentation that was able to visually summarize the findings for the leadership. And here is an example slide that I had in it. It shows top three things interns enjoy the most. And I had statistics of how many of the respondents actually felt this way and how many of them, and a brief description of each theme. We got three right here that I was able to display. And this is a reflection. So overall, obviously, this practicum significantly contributed to my professional growth. I gained experience, professional development by attending workshops. For example, I just attended a USG workshop on social intelligence because I was recommended to do so through my graduate assistantship meetings. Just communicating with several and different professionals is such valuable insights you can gain because everyone is so willing to give advice and give feedback. And yeah, my intern Slack channels, there's always things going on in there, people providing valuable information. I learned how to what different LLM models, AI models would be used for different different purposes. It's often easy to categorize AI as one thing, but nowadays there's so many different LLM models that different things can be catered to specific tasks, and so that can really optimize your experience going forward. Consulting experience, right? Different projects that I've done, the tap brochure, consulting with the graphic design team and the print shop, and going back and forth creating project plans, the training project, obviously consulting with the HR and EOD department before I was working with them as a sort of a consultant, creating a project plan and delivering them a slide deck that they needed and that was able to be implemented into the training. And then the nonprofit, of course, that is probably the most direct application of consulting, and I'm very excited and hopeful for this project as it goes and progresses among the next few months. And presentations, obviously, I talked a little bit about the presentations I've done. But one of the things that I learned that was really valuable, because it also has come up in interviews that I've been able to use, is tailoring your findings to your audience. So when I was creating my Maslow's hierarchy of needs slide deck initially, a lot of my examples were more kind of general in terms of the fact that I was using maybe an example from Apple or a company that really had not much correlation or relatability to higher education faculty. And so I had to tailor the scenarios that I put in my slide deck to actually have bring about that sense of relatability for the audience that was going to be receiving the training. And so that was something that I really learned, because it's important to be able to communicate to the stakeholders that are going to be receiving on being on the receiving end for your presentations. And thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, have a good one.